This is an announcement for the next session of Wargames and Wargamers, a free and open public video chat for all things related to wargaming. So all you need is one link, one address, https://appear.in/bigboard, one word BIGBOARD. So the next session will be next Saturday, the 13th of February 2016, and that'll be from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, all you need is that link. You do not need any launcher, download, user ID, or password. All you need is that link, https:// the word appear.in/bigboard. So yesterday, the 6th of February, we did talk about, some turn-offs for war games, but I would definitely say the consensus was that if the rules look interesting enough, the mechanics look interesting enough, many turn-offs can be suppressed long enough to get past. But what I came away with most vividly from yesterday's discussion is really World War I, smaller scale tactical games. So I have some games to look into. It was a very chatty, very social session, as it almost always is. So next week, Dark Ages, gaming in the Dark Ages. So first of all, I started thinking about this recently when I was looking at the Might of Arms rule set. Now this is a miniatures rule set, but I noticed right on the cover rules for Ancients, Dark Ages, and Medieval eras, and got me to thinking how many war games really specify that they are about the Dark Ages. Now, there's some, discussion about the term itself, Dark Ages. I checked my Columbia Guide to World History, and they don't even use the term Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, as we would think, is referred to as the early Middle Ages, as opposed to the High Middle Ages and the Late Middle Ages. So they don't even use Dark Ages. It's certainly, when you get around to like the history of the art of war, there was definitely some older scholarship that argued that the art of war in the Western world disappeared in the Dark Ages along with a lot of other things, and so therefore the conclusion might be drawn that warfare in the Dark Ages would not be very interesting. Then there's more recent scholarship to suggest that sweeping generality about warfare in the Dark Ages isn't really accurate. While the battles might have been small, they were not necessarily dramatically more simple or simplistic than warfare before or after the period. And there is scholarship to show that it was not nearly random violence, that there was campaigning, and well, really there was the art of war was still there, but there were social factors that shaped the characteristics of warfare, but it was not really a dark era where you didn't have military art, basically. So war games in the Dark Ages. So I have a fairly good collection of war games, spanning SPI's Kampfpanzer to MMP's Beyond the Rhine, and from DBA to Spearpoint 1943. So have a fairly good collection of games, and I was looking through, and it's like, if I wanted to pull out something and play a battle level game in the Dark Ages, you know, I had a really hard time finding anything at all. And what I wound up with was a number of rule sets, whether it's Warhammer Historicals, Field of Glory miniatures, the Zvezda Age of Battles, again, miniatures. So I was wondering, so first of all, what has been done in really the Hex Encounter format? And interestingly, I went to Board Game Geek, and in the categories, and they have a lot of categories, right, to describe the games on Board Game Geek, and they don't have a Dark Ages category. Looking around, it's all lumped under medieval, which is really, it's unfortunate, because if you take medieval to be 500 AD all the way to 1500 AD, that's too much history to be lumping together. But then again, maybe we have so little Dark Ages in wargaming that it's not practical to have a separate category. Okay. Looking deeper, I did find 2 geek lists on Dark Ages gaming, and frankly, not a lot. Not a lot, and almost entirely miniatures. So let's talk about Saga first. I do not own Saga, and I have not played Saga. I've read a little bit about Saga. Dark Age Skirmishes by Gripping Beast. Looking at the game description, this is how it's described. Gripping Beasts, Dark Ages Miniatures Skirmish. Each side has between 25 to 73 miniatures, organized into groups of 4 to 12 figures. Miniatures are classed as Hearthguard, Warriors, or Levy, and an army comprises 4 or 6 points of units. 1 point equals 4 Hearthguard, 8 Warriors, or 12 Levy figures. Each faction, Anglo-Danish, Viking, Welsh, Norman, has its own battle board of command options, which are selected depending on the roll of your Saga dice. Saga dice have special icons and give your command choices for the turn. Combat and shooting are simple and based on 6-sided dice rolls. The real challenge is to use the options from your battle board as effectively as possible. The core game comes with a battle board for the 4 main factions, with future battle board releases intended to cover other armies' factions. Okay. Initial impressions seems to be kind of maybe a mechanic in search of a theme. Not sure at all. Referring to basically the options management, which is really like army characteristics management. Referring to that as command is questionable. I mean, is that really how you want? Is that how I would portray command in a Dark Ages skirmish setting? I don't think so, but I'm not saying I've made up my mind there, but I don't think so. And then kind of factions kind of sounds, maybe Saga is a game of the times, referring to fantasy gamers, 1, computer gamers, 2, and 3, Euro gamers. Well, that's about what I'll say. Reason why I'm pointing all this out is that, and by the way, I might buy Saga, and I might wind up playing it with stand-in pieces, not minis, but something stand-in pieces. But my initial impression is maybe Saga Dark Age Skirmishes is trying to capture a superficial kind of Hollywood view of warfare in the Dark Ages. Not to say bad at all, but that's the reason why I'm pointing that out, is that in my mind, when I was thinking about Dark Ages wargaming, I was thinking, what would, okay, set Saga aside, What would a Dark Ages war game look like if it were done to the level of detail of Musket and Pike series, Battle of the Age of Reason series, or Great Battles of History series? If it were done to that level of detail, what would it look like? Because I do think it would be different. Dark Ages battles would be distinct from those other eras. But first of all, I believe, well, at least it seems like an intriguing design challenge to make a game with that level of detail, but that really brings out the nature of Dark Ages battle. Yeah, so what would it look like? And that of course made me think, well, have I missed something? Is there something already out there to that level of detail? So so the two Dark Ages gaming geek lists I found on Board Game Geek, not very extensive at all. I had completely forgotten about Cataphract. Cataphract, from the GMT games, the Great Battles of History series. So what time period is covered? So Cataphract portrays the development of the art of war wrought by the early Byzantine Empire during the reign of Emperor Justinian under his great generals Belisarius and Narses. During this period, the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, for a brief period of time recaptured a large portion of what was formerly the Western Roman Empire. So it covers all the major battles of this period, which is what? Where are the battles? Interesting. I don't get a summary. So yeah, I had completely forgotten about Cataphract. So it looks like it covers the Battle of Dara. Okay, so that's 528 AD. Okay. Callinicum, 531 AD. That's good. Tricameron, 534 AD. That's good. Sena Gallica. Okay, so it looks like it's all 6th century. 6 battles. 6th century, definitely falls within what I was looking for, yes. Although I would like to see, really, I'd like to see, really 7th, 8th, 9th centuries. But this still qualifies for what I'm looking for as far as Dark Ages battle gaming. So I should probably take a look at Cataphract. And then there are numerous, no, I'm sorry, not numerous, that's definitely misleading. There are several miniatures rules. Actually, I missed another one. Viking Raiders, 1987, published by Eurogames and Standard Games and Publications Limited. 4 designers. It says it's Hex Encounter, simulation. Viking Raiders or Viking Knights of the Sea is both I've never heard of this game. It's both a self-standing game in its own right and a companion game for Siege and Cry Havoc. Okay, I have heard of Cry Havoc. Okay. On its own, Viking Raiders has 4 different scenarios. There are also 2 further scenarios which combine Viking Raiders with Siege and Cry Havoc. Viking Raiders is a game of historical simulation during the era of Vikings in the 8th and 11th centuries, okay? Viking Raiders leads you to the age of great Viking raids on European coasts. Again, that would fall, that's a distinctive kind of warfare, but it certainly falls within what I'm looking for when I say Dark Ages wargaming. Comes with 1 sea and 1 coast map in the Standard Games edition. Okay. Now, if it's Cry Havoc, it's probably, I'm guessing, very small scale. But I'm intrigued. Okay. So Viking Raiders, but related to the Cry Havoc series. There's Shield Wall, of course. That's Warhammer Historicals. There's the Shock of Impact, 1981. Publisher Tabletop Games. Designers Ian Beck, Michael Busey. This is miniatures. Okay, miniatures. Okay, so this spans the period 1600 BC to 1066 AD. Its description is ancient war games rules written out of frustration with the WRG and other existing rule sets in the late 70s and early 80s. Okay, haven't heard about that either, but it sounds intriguing. The Shock of Impact. And then Hack in the Dark Ages. Here's Dark Ages in the title. Hack in the Dark Ages, 250 AD to 1000 AD. Okay. Again, medieval miniatures war game. What's the scale? What scale? So we're talking 1 inch is 150 feet. Each turn is 15 to 20 minutes. Figure scale is flexible from 5 to 200 men. Okay. This actually looks even more in line with what I'm looking for battle scale. Okay. And then, well, that's pretty much it. Oh, actually, I have to mention Dark Ages, 1971, SPI. Designer Stephen Patrick. Is it part of... Yeah, it's part of a family listed as SPI Tactical Series. So again, in the title, Tactical Warfare 700 to 1300 AD, another interesting slicing of time. So this is like the 300 years before and the 300 years after Hastings. It covers all the major military systems, such as Vikings, Crusaders, Muslim, cavalry, Byzantine legions, and Mongol hordes. 14 scenarios. So I can't ignore this one either. Very early, of course, Hex Encounter, SPI. Before I move on, yeah, oh, wow, 6.26 average BGG rating. That's actually not that. It's actually not that bad for an SPI game of this era. Okay. Well, that's what I found. So again, one, what is out there, and is it primarily miniatures in the miniature side of the hobby, and what would a detailed Hex Encounter Dark Ages battle scale game look like? What would it capture? What would it emphasize? How important would commands be? Maybe things like fatigue, more important. Unit cohesion. Yeah. So Dark Ages gaming seems like a bit of a dark spot in wargaming. If you want anything outside the miniatures realm. So next, Wargames and Wargamers video chat, 13 February 2016, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at https://appear.in/bigboard.